these Fed announcements, they can put it on a loop. Okay, I can tell you what they're going to say right now.
Okay, tell us.
Yeah, they're going to keep interest rates are going to be unchanged, and they're going to say that they're worried about inflation, but they don't see any problem right now, and there's no reason to raise rates. But they're going to keep an eye on it. That's what they're going to say. So rates will stay the same, but they're going to make jawboning remarks about. They're going to flap their lips about the potential of a threat, and they're going to keep their eye on it. But they're not going to raise rates anytime soon because this inflation thing, it's transitory, it's a mirage, it doesn't exist. You might be paying more for food and groceries, and you might be paying more for your rental car, but that's an illusion. Don't believe your eyes. Believe us at the Fed here. We know more, and that doesn't exist. There is no inflation. In fact, there's a threat of deflation. That's why we got to keep rates low. We might even have to lower them. That's right. We might even have to lower them, but we're never going to raise them. No, because there's no inflation.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's why Paul Tudor Jones said this past week. Everybody was talking about it. His appearance on one of those channels. It might have been CNBC. And the thing is that he said the Fed's credibility is on the line, and he doesn't see how they're going to unwind it. So he was looking forward to this day today, right, to see what he's going to do next. At the moment, he's saying that the only thing I know for certain is I want 5% in gold, 5% in Bitcoin, 5% in cash, 5% in commodities. At this point in time, I don't know what I want to do with the other 80% until I see what the Fed is going to do. So he believes that the Fed will continue, as you say, same as usual, keep on printing more QE, despite, as he points out, the inflation, which is surging. He doesn't think it's temporary or transitory, as the Fed claims. He believes it's permanent, and that, you could see these huge bubbles everywhere, boom times, and despite all of that, the Fed keeps on printing. Or he said, if they indicate that if they mention that they are actually concerned about inflation, then it could send the markets tumbling.
They will say they're concerned about inflation,
okay,
but they won't change rates. Number one. Number two, when Paul Tudor Jones says, "Oh, this is going to test the Fed's credibility," that's a bit disingenuous because he has been saying, as well as other professionals like myself, that the Fed lost its credibility many, many years ago. Certainly under Ben Bernanke, he made that famous remark that they could raise rates in 15 minutes. They could drain it. Balance sheet whenever they want to. Meanwhile, the balance sheet's gone up to 8 or 9 trillion now, and it's set to increase by another 10 to 20 trillion. So I don't know what he's saying about credibility. They already lost their credibility. Now, importantly, he said that he raised his Bitcoin allocation from 1% to 5%. That's a 500% increase. That's exactly what we said when Paul Tudor Jones first announced his 1% allocation.
You did.
Within 6 months, he's going to raise that to 5% or higher. And this is a signal to the hedge fund market, the money management industry, everyone's got to take up their allocation now because he's the alpha dog. He's the lead dog. You got to keep pace at least with Paul Tudor Jones to stay in business. You got Ray Dalio, I think, is still sitting on the fence. He's got to commit now or just just shut the door and go home. The bottom line after this meeting of the Fed, whatever today is, will be, like I said, Steve Martin doing the weather report in LA Story is the name of the movie. And they just put it on a loop. They've been playing that loop every 3 or 4 months for the last 10 years. There's no change in that loop.
Kyle Bass says we have negative real rates of over 10%. He was on CNBC as well this week. Kyle Bass says that actual inflation is 12%. What do you think of that, Max?
I think this is exactly what we said on this broadcast for the last year. That given what he's doing is he's saying, hey, if you calculate inflation based on the way it was done before all of the recent adjustments to how you calculate inflation, for example, replacing house prices with rent and other so-called hedonic adjustments, your actual inflation is running at 12%. College costs are up 500%. Healthcare costs are up 500%, right? So those are real costs. People don't go to the hospital and say, oh, I need my appendix out, and they give you a quote, and you say, no, I can only pay 1/10 of that based on what the government says is the true inflation rate. That doesn't work, does it? You got to get your appendix out. And they charge you at rates that are 500% higher today than they were even 10 years ago.
Yeah, the hedonic adjustments would say, like, okay, if they tell you that to take your appendix out, it'll cost $10,000, that you're going to go, well, what would it cost to take my pinky off instead?
Yeah, what would it cost to trim my nails? Oh, we can do that only for $200. Oh, okay, just trim my nails. Leave my infected appendix alone. Thanks so much. I can only afford the nail polish, nail clipping.
So Bitcoin has soared. The Fed released their statement 15 minutes ago, and Bitcoin soared. Decent spike in the 10-year yield above 1.53%. After hawkish surprise from the Fed up to where it was last week.
Okay, what was the hawkish surprise?
The Fed said inflation was above their long-term target is 3.4%, not 2.4%. Decent spike in markets sink on today's Fed meeting. The S&P extended its decline by 1% after the Fed sees 2 hikes by the end of 2023.
And they say, okay, the 10-year went to 1.63, I believe you just said.
Yeah.
Right? What did I say? I said it was 1.6.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, it's up to 1.63.
Oh, 153. 153.
153. Okay, so that's just like 20 basis points off or 30 basis points off all-time lows, right? So that's going to reverse. 10 years going under 1%.
They said, music.
The inflation is above what we expected, but we don't see it as being a problem at the moment, and we may raise rates in a year or two. Okay, but they're not going to raise rates now. That's exactly word for word, almost verbatim what I said they were going to say. Number 2, my prediction for what will happen, what the Fed will do, is that they're going to lower rates and that the 10-year Treasury goes under 1%. That is my prediction, and my prediction has been correct now for over 500 years. I'm Max Adamus. I've made every accurate prediction since the beginning of time. And this is what's going to happen as I predict it will happen. And Paul Tudor Jones, I mean, I don't know. He's just playing to the cameras by making believe that there's people behind the screen who know what they're doing and saying things that gives them some credibility by saying, I'm not sure they have credibility. He knows they have no credibility. We know they have no credibility. And he's going to be taking his Bitcoin position up to 5%. And I also predict by the end of the year, it'll be 10%.
Yeah. Somebody said in the comments that you can't taper a dingleberry.
You can't taper a dingleberry. No, you can't do it. You can't do it. And you can't taper a Ponzi scheme. And this has been a Ponzi scheme now for a long, long time. And you can't raise rates. You know, that's the fact. We're in a huge trap of money printing that will only get more absolutely crazy in the coming months.